Yeah, Tom, good afternoon. I suppose this was an argument that was always going to eventuate, but Facebook and Google today appearing before the Senate committee, ironically, I suppose, appearing via video link, a sign of just how far big tech giants have come. They made the point that this mandatory media bargaining code, which the government has brought before Parliament just before Christmas and wants to enact, is untenable and unworkable. So much so, Google has actually made the point that the worst-case scenario could see them pulling out of Australia completely, even though, I suppose it should be added that they have 95% of search engine queries. Only 1.25% apparently relate to news. They say, though, that they can't afford to enact these changes which the government wants. What would the consequences be for those at home? Well, one of the concerns for the government is this is an unfettered area where extremists are allowed to propagate and allowed to share opinions. They want rules and regulations guarding the online mediums. They also want to make sure that these big tech giants pay for the content they use. A lot of it they don't create. They go to other companies, they take what they've created, they allow it to go online, they monetize that and they make money. When people aren't going to the sources of where that was created, it means people aren't going to newspapers, or they potentially aren't going to TV stations, so their revenue drops. So you end up losing journalists, the people who hold power to account. So the government wants to make sure that it further protects the industry. Have a listen to what Mel Silva from Google had to say earlier this morning when she threatened that Google might pull out of Australia.
If this version of the code were to become law, it would give us no real choice but to stop making Google search available in Australia. Now, that would be a bad outcome for us, but also for the Australian people.
Now, you've threatened to take news off your platform. What will that actually mean in practice to the users of your platform?
Just to be clear, Chair, we have not threatened. We've explained. We think this in order to inform the policy-making process. I can reassure the committee that this does not mean that Facebook would no longer be available, but we would no longer be able to provide news as part of the Facebook product. Now,
Google conceded that it makes some $4.8 billion in gross revenue. There was a heated exchange between Sarah Hanson-Young and the Google executive where she held Google to account and basically said the numbers they claim don't stack up in terms of the damage they believe it will do to their business, and therefore they're holding Australians to ransom.
But you're an advertising company, aren't you? You're not a news agency.
Senator, we don't produce news.
But you've just come here this morning and told us that only 1.25% of search results are news, and yet if this legislation passes, you'll shut down search for everybody, for everything across the country. And that's a hell of a threat.
Senator, what we're outlining is the worst-case scenario. We don't want that to be the outcome. The code as it stands sets an untenable precedent for us